Here in the Lakes area, we've experienced tremendous growth. We've been very fortunate that even through the worst parts of the recession, while it did get bad here and some people were hit and definitely had life-changing events occur, compared to other parts of the state and other parts of the country, we were relatively shielded from that. That I think is in part due to our diverse economy and several other factors that you can attribute that to as well. But something has got me a little bit troubled as I look around with the growth we've had here in the Lakes area. Now, I'm not going to go through my whole spiel right now about how we shouldn't be expanding the city's infrastructure at the sacrifice of the infrastructure we already have in place, although in some aspects I do think we might be guilty of doing that in town. No, this has a little more to do with the safety and the coverage of the community we live in. And it really has to do with focusing on the Detroit Lakes Police Department. Now, I believe this department of young men and women have done their darndest to try to protect us here in the Lakes area and work very, very hard night after night, day after day doing so, and I think do so relatively well, and we live in what I feel is an extremely safe community. There is no place in Detroit Lakes that I would feel nervous about walking around at any time of the day or night or early morning hours, and I think most people like that. Heck, we still live in a town where a lot of people, I bet, don't even lock their doors. And I know a lot of people don't lock their car doors because the number one crime we probably have in our city is property crime. And at least when it comes to thefts, car burglaries seem to be the most common. And about 90% of the victims are people that leave their doors unlocked. We live in a safe community. However, Detroit Lakes, as I mentioned, has grown. And we're not growing our law enforcement in the same capacity. In fact, it's decreased. Compared to what it was in 2008, 2009, we had 15, 16 officers on our roster. Now we have 14 officers. We've actually lost our drug enforcement officer with the Detroit Lakes Police Department, and they've gotten so busy, and because of lack of officers, they actually got rid of doing the door unlock service, which is a huge convenience. Detroit Lakes has gone from a population of roughly 7,300 10 years ago to over 8,500. They've also expanded its business area and annexed in several more areas into the city. All this with a shrinking police force. And yet with taxes going up to spend on other things and law enforcement going down, and to me, law enforcement being one of the fundamental functions of a city government, I question, are you and I as Becker County taxpayers getting the most use out of our money? And are you and I as Becker County and Detroit Lakes taxpayers as safe as we were 6-7 years ago? As more people move in, you get a lot of good people, but you get some of the riffraff as well. It's the law of large numbers. The 12 or 1,300 people that have moved into the city limits of Detroit Lakes over the last 10 years, again, most of them are good, some of them might not be. And I just think we should make a concerted effort to at least keep the law enforcement in town, the police department, at the same level of officers, or expand it. Otherwise, I think you're being a penny wise and a pound foolish. And frankly, there's one thing I believe we deserve in Detroit Lakes, and that is to have the best law enforcement capabilities we can to be as safe as possible. Because even though we're a small town, we're big in the tourism trade, and even though we might only have a department designed for a community of, let's say, 8,000 to 9,000, everyone knows every Thursday through Sunday on the weekend, we're about twice that size.